there's something in our lives, there's something in our heart that's not right. I'm going to start with the 16th verse. It says, "For thou desirest not sacrifice, else would I give it. Thou delightest not in burnt offerings." The sacrifices of God are a broken spirit, a broken and contrite heart. O God, thou wilt not despise. You know, I was looking up the word contrite. Contrite is broken, bruised. The actual it says, "Worn or bruised, hence broken-hearted for sin, deeply affectionate with grief or sorrow for offended God, humble, penitent, is a contrite sinner." You know, it's only mentioned 5 times in the whole Bible. It's all in the Old Testament. 2 of them are in Psalms. 3 of them are in Isaiah. It's very strong, strong word. When we go before God in prayer, first thing we have to do is believe that He can answer the prayer and that He's holy enough. The second thing we have to do is we have to realize that we have to be humble. We have to have a humble spirit. If my people will humble themselves and pray, one of Pastor's favorite verses. If we're not humble, when we go to Him, you know, when I was a kid, I'd go to my dad and I'd ask for something. I would go up there and say, "Hey," I'd say, "Dad, I kind of need something. Can I get a couple of bucks?" You know, we didn't go up there high and mighty. We went up there very humble, very contrite. Because if you walk up to your dad, you just say, "Hey, Dad, give me." Your dad's going to look at you and say, "Yeah." we have to be humble before God. And sometimes, if we're not, He's going to humble us. We have to realize that we ain't all it. You know, I was thinking about this when I started, and I looked at God and I said, "Lord, I don't know if I can preach. What can I tell anyone? You know, I'm not exactly the oldest, wisest in the room. Here. The Lord says, you have a story to tell. You have a life that you've lived, and you've lived it outside my graces for a long time. You're an example. I am the least of all. As Paul says, I am the chief among sinners." He says, "But you share your story. How I took you from the reverend boy to the guy groveling in the dirt to where you are now. And it all happens through prayer. If it wasn't for the prayers, 2 little old ladies, my mom and dad, once they got saved, there's no telling where I'd be. I am an example of how prayer works. We're in a situation now with this church, and we're not seeing the end result. I don't even think we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. We've got grandchildren that don't appreciate grandparents right now. We've got people saying, "Hey, you didn't give me what I wanted for Christmas, so you're not Christian," basically. We've got people coming back and saying things that are untrue. So I get thinking, I said, "Well, Lord, why is this happening? What did I do wrong?" What did Pastor West do? Sin follows you. And the Lord looks at me and says, well, did Job do wrong? Really? Job. He was perfect in all his ways, and yet calamity hit him. Why? God says, hey, Satan, you think you got something? I got something for you. Go ahead. And sometimes in our lives, in our situations, we just got to walk through it. You know, I heard Jan say, I'm discouraged, but not discouraged in the Lord. Paul says, I learned to be thankful. I've learned to be, in all states, humble. Whether I be rich or I be humble. Whether I be in any state that I am, I've learned to be content. I can understand discouragement. You know, it's hard. And I know it's hard for Pastor West to stand up here week after week after hearing what his grandson said. You depress me. Your sermons are not uplifting. Let me think. You know, I've been around a long time. Not as long as some of you, but I've been around the Christian circuit for quite some time. Even when I was in the world, I'd listen to Christian radio or watch Christian TV. Sometimes I like to poke fun at the televangelists. Because, you know, anyone will run around a $300 Rolex and a $5,000 suit while preaching to the poor. But the thing is all sermons are not intended to be uplifting. You only speak what God tells you to speak when He tells you to speak it. And sometimes if we're not right, even if we just come to the Lord, and even if we're just learning to walk, sometimes we have to be chastised. I know as a kid I was chastised an awful lot. My dad just loved me. But through it, I learned to walk. I learned to think. I learned what good, what right, and what wrong was. If I've never been chastised, I'd never know. Sometimes our messages aren't the most jump up, dance for joy type messages. But they're not intended to be. God speaks what we need when we need it, and not anything less, not anything more. And if we don't personalize it, if we don't take it to heart, then we're missing it. Prayer is always the answer. Prayer is our communication with our Father. Not some all-seeing God out there that we can't touch, that we can't reach, but our Father, who's always there with us, always protecting us. Sometimes He's given us the belt, only because He loves us. But He never turns His eyes away. He keeps us in His reach. He has the power to keep us in His loving arms forever. The only way that we can ever be taken from that is if we walk away. We got to keep in prayer. We got to keep our hearts in tune. now more than ever. Because if we don't, then the discouragement will take over. And if we let ourselves get to that point, then we'll lose. Remember, Paul says this is a race. It's a race of endurance. He wouldn't use the word endurance if it was going to be easy. Endurance means to go through hardships, to last longer than the physical abilities that we have. We lean on God for our strength, for our sustenance, for our ability to speak, not just to each other, but to those around us. If we try to use our own words, we'll fall. We'll fail. If we don't let God speak through us. And the only way for that to happen is to keep in prayer with Him, keep in contact with Him. Paul says, pray constantly. To be in constant prayer, be in constant communication with our Father. The minute we cease is the minute we fall. Reverend?
You sing it. I won't add to it. Can't add to it. Dismiss this.
Dear Heavenly Father, I ask you today, dear Lord, within your holy name, that as we go back out into the world for this week, that you be with us, that you comfort us, that you strengthen us. Lord, that your will be done. And now we know it's your will through seeing through your eyes, Lord. We ask that as we go out in the world, we touch people, that they realize that it's you touching them, not just us. Lord, I ask that you bless each and every one of us, that you protect each and every one of us, that you put a hedge around us. Lord, not only our physical bodies, but our spiritual bodies and our emotions as well. Lord, we ask as we go about our ways that you keep us under your arms. Keep us in your arms, Lord. And allow us to come back together on your next time. In Jesus' name we ask.